Brothers and sisters away in Osiemi, Pastor Melo speaking. Dear sisters, dear brothers, we are going to approach in this video a very delicate subject, that of the miraculous blood of Christ. We will develop this theme through the case of a Black American woman. Her name is Henrietta Lacks, and the number of lives her blood has saved is incalculable. This number should exceed 1 billion, which is unique in the history of humanity. Before arriving at this concrete case to illustrate our point, we will first touch on a fact that, despite years of research, I have not seen any theologian or exegete of the Bible address. On a strictly physical level, the blood shed on the cross of Calvary by Christ for the salvation of all humanity was that of a black woman, the blood of his mother. Indeed, we do believe that the Creator himself overshadowed a young and chaste young woman from his solely named Mariamou. When she became pregnant, she was a virgin, no man having ever known her. Therefore, to make ourselves clear, let me digress into the realm of biology, the science of life. Let's talk for a moment about the genetics of human procreation. Genetics, the hyper-sophisticated science of human procreation, involves the transmission of genetic material from two parents to their offspring. The process begins with the fusion of a sperm and an egg during fertilization. Each of these cells provides half of the genetic information needed to create a new being. In the case of Kousoua Christ, there was no physical intervention of a spermatozoid. Saint Joseph, the husband of Mariamou, did not have sexual relations with his wife. The miraculous character of the conception of Kousoua Christ lies precisely in the presence of an ovum and nothing else, giving rise to fertilization. The genetic information leading to the formation of a new creature is made up half of that of the father and half of that of the mother. This genetic information is found in the blood, but in the case of Christ, there was no physical father. So, the genetic baggage that circulated in the body of Kousoua Christ is that of Mariamou, his mother. This means that the genealogies of Christ found in the books of Matthew, chapter 1, verse 16, and Luke, chapter 3, verse 23, and which trace the family tree of the Son of God through Joseph, constitute an absolute nonsense. And these, especially since the progress of science gives reason to the Bantu, in particular the Congo people, who, from time immemorial, had the divine premonition that the maternal part predominates over that of the father with regard to heredity. This is why his solely is matrilineal. In other words, it's the blood of the mother that determines the ancestry and not that of the father. But let's turn it over to the science of mitochondrial DNA or mtDNA. Mitochondria are organelles in cells that have their own DNA. In humans, mtDNA is inherited only from the mother. This means that all of a person's mtDNA comes from their mother and can be traced back through maternal ancestors. mtDNA is very stable over time and is less likely to mutate than other types of DNA, making it an essential tool for tracing a person's genealogy. Conclusion: the genetic baggage contained in the blood of Kousoua Christ was uniquely that of his mother for several reasons, including the following two. A. There was no sexual relationship Therefore, there's no father. B. Assuming that Christ's conception was metaphysical, the only human participant throughout Christ's conception and birth is Mariamou, his mother. The immortality of Christ elucidated through a black woman, Henrietta Lacks. Henrietta Lacks is a poor African-American farmer and mother of 5 children. In 1951, in the midst of racial segregation in the United States, she was admitted to Johns Hopkins Hospital, one of the few places in Maryland that accepted to treat African American patients. She complains of random bleeding and pain in her groin. After examination by gynecologists Howard Jones, the doctors discovered a huge malignant tumor on her cervix. She immediately undergo X-ray treatment, which is the best treatment available for her cancer. At the same time, the doctors take a sample of her cancerous cells. These are sent to the tissue laboratory of a certain Dr. George J., one of the best specialists in the field of viruses and cancers. For years, Dr. J collected cells from cervical cancer patients who came for treatment at Johns Hopkins Hospital. Much to the disappointment of the researcher, every sample taken dies. However, by analyzing that of Henrietta Lacks, Dr. J falls from the clouds. Indeed, the cells of the latter seem to have reached immortality insofar as they renew themselves without stopping every 24 hours. Remember that we are in the middle of the 20th century, and this discovery constitutes an incredible scientific breakthrough. For decades, whenever researchers tried to test human cells for a cure for a disease, the cells died within hours. Those of Henrietta Lacks, Ella cells, meanwhile, survived and could grow indefinitely, which means there was now almost an infinite supply of these perfect cells, immortal if used correctly. The first thing these cells were tested on was polio, and instead of dying straight away like most other cells, they survived. This allowed researchers to experiment with HeLa cells until they found a vaccine for one of the biggest child killers of the early 20th century, poliomyelitis. Curing polio was just the beginning of HeLa cells' fantastic career. At the end of the century, its cells were used to create, among other things, the vaccine against the human papillomavirus, thereby saving millions of lives, to sharpen the knowledge of human genetics and to better understand cells in general. Scientists have produced up to 50 million tons of HeLa cells, and they are used to find cures and vaccines for diseases such as AIDS, cancer, and typhoid. Unfortunately, we must point out that neither Henrietta Lacks, who died a few weeks after her treatment began, nor her family were rewarded for their invaluable contribution to science. First, because her cells were taken without her knowledge and her family was not informed until 20 years later. Then, because that was the fate of Black Americans, victims of discrimination, even after having made discoveries that allowed significant scientific progress in the history of humanity. We will dedicate a video to this topic in the future. To conclude on HeLa, to imagine that millions and millions of racist whites, especially in apartheid South Africa, were saved by the blood of a black woman is one of the most poignant ironies of the history. Blood of Christ, blood of Henrietta Lacks, similarities and a wink from the Most High. The similarities between the blood of Kousoua Christ and that of Henrietta Lacks are multiple. A. They have a saving character. Christ came into the world in order to shed on the cross His blood intended to save millions and millions of lives. This is exactly what Her blood has done since 1951 to date. B. The blood of Kousoua Christ contains something precious, something rare. It contains the seed of immortality. This allowed Christ to come back to life 3 days after entering Hades. Her blood, likewise, contains something rare and precious. It is the germ of the immortality of her cells, which do not die but are constantly renewed. C. The melanin contained in high proportion in the blood of Kousoua's mother, Mariamou, who certainly was not white, explains the rare and precious properties mentioned above. Among these properties, let us mention just two. A. UV radiation protection. Melanin acts as a natural sunscreen by absorbing harmful UV radiation from the sun. This helps to protect the skin from damage, including sunburn, premature aging, and skin cancer. B. Antioxidant properties. Melanin is a potent antioxidant that can help to neutralize free radicals and prevent oxidative damage to cells. This can help to protect the body from a variety of diseases and conditions, including cancer, heart disease, and Alzheimer's disease. The immortality of hair cells is probably to be found in the fact that Henrietta Lacks was of a melanized race. The Almighty has, through the extraordinary and tragic story of this Black American, having suffered even beyond death the ingratitude and injustice of men like Kousoua Christ, sent a message to humanity. A. Christ certainly was of the melanized race. B. The blood of Calvary to save mankind was that of a black woman. C. He or she who is despised by men is greatest in the sight of the Creator. D. Minority peoples who are matrilineal are closer to science than majority peoples who practice patriarchy. E. Mariamou, Christ's mother, and Henrietta Lacks wink at you from the celestial spheres, hoping that you have understood the essence of the message contained in this video. Ingeta, Pastor Melo.
C'est loué, c'est loué, c'est loué. Et mon ongele, lusala e luvu vamu.